Hello, everybody. This is your favorite Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast produced during the worldwide quarantine. This is Here Comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Mike L., and as usual, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be talking about Spider-Man comics from December of 1982.
That's right, and once again this week we have a special guest. Special guest, can you please say hello to everybody? Introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. It's G.I. Jolie.
Whee! So
Yay.
you decided to come back, eh? You had so much fun last time, you decided to come back.
I just needed to know what happens with Tarantula and Willow the Wisp.
Well, then you're on the right... You came to the right place then, right?
Right. I mean,
right.
all bets are off about this podcast after the quarantine is over.
That's true.
Yeah.
Damn it. All right, we'll do our best. So yeah, we're going to start off with Amazing Spider-Man 235. This issue features a mutated tarantula. So Tarantula looks literally like a tarantula now. And then it also features Willow the Wisp. And I, of course, as usual, love this issue, written by Roger Stern, drawn by John Romita Jr. It's a continuation of the ongoing story with these two characters. I got a feeling that Josh and I both liked it, but I'm going to start with you, Jolie, and you can let us know what you thought of this story.
Let me refer to my notes. Okay, the art is still good. But it's just, I didn't have a yes or a no for this one. I just had it's still a big fight comic, but at least we got a bit of an origin story. So, it looks like I liked it. I definitely liked it more than the last issue. Really?
Okay. Josh, what did you think of this issue?
Yeah, I also liked it a little bit more in this one, having a little bit of context for Will the Wisp and kind of what his whole deal is. Would definitely kind of made this issue a little bit better, and also gave a little bit of context for last issue. And I mean, even all the other issues we've been reading where Will the Wisp just kind of shows up and does whatever.
Right.
We kind of get an explanation of like what his powers are. Where his powers came from, but not necessarily what they are.
Right.
Still, but it's fine. But I also like that we leave on the exact same cliffhanger from last issue.
That bothered me.
Yeah.
It felt like it made the issue feel like it was filler, because we could have picked up right here and you'd really never know the difference, right?
Because not much, like nothing happens in this issue besides the fact that we get Will-O-the-Wisp's backstory. Like, but I don't think anything new happens, right? Like,
not anything significant. I mean, I think there's a lot of good subplotting going on, personally.
Sure.
But for the main characters, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of back and forth. But I definitely like the stuff with Peter, and like, here's the thing is, I'm used to all the stuff with Peter and his rent and his landlord. Jolie, what did you think about that stuff, about fleshing out his like supporting cast and all that?
Well, that's the thing, is that there was a little, I like it. I like to see his little world. That's fine. And then like to see, like, honestly, his little dark room in a windowless bathroom, it was like my dark room in a windowless bathroom. Like,
right.
It brought back memories of, I mean, I wasn't developing photos. I was shooting screens for printing, but like, you know, it makes the character more relatable as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like I like seeing that kind of stuff. Like, he, after one, weirdly just kind of leaving the building where all of the action just took place. He just
that was weird.
casually sneaks into a men's room and like exits with the rest of them. Everyone else who's evacuating, he just like returns to his normal life. Like, what he was just doing is like super heightened, and then to just go back and fight with this old woman just brandishing a plunger. Like, it's such a strange dichotomy for him, but like it's fun to see, I guess.
Yeah. Josh, what do you think of that stuff?
Yeah, it felt good and it felt right for a Peter Parker story. I don't think it was particularly like outstanding. It just for me was kind of the norm for all the issues we've been reading. But it felt at home reading it. It didn't, but it also didn't stick out as anything great. But
well, the way I see it, for some people, especially only older readers, they complain about Peter sort of always being in the same situation of always needing money, always having to sell his photos, always screwing up, always being down on his luck. The way I see it is, it's like Charlie Brown kicking the football.
Yeah.
Lucy's always going to pull it out, and the day that Charlie Brown kicks that football, it's like the strip is over. Like, that is the joke, right? No matter how many times you read it, it's always funny. And to me, that's what this is like. It's like it's the same old thing, but I love it personally.
Well, that's what life is like, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
Like, once one thing is fixed, there's usually another problem that comes up, right? So having Peter Parker always have these problems and always down on his luck feels right all the time.
Right.
At least for me. Like, it just... I can't see it happening any other way.
Right. Now, okay, so another thing I really liked about this issue was the recap we get, building up, sort of explaining Roxxon Oil and the brand corporation, okay? And one of the reasons I liked it is because a lot of these stories not only have I read, but we've read on Quasar Chronology, right?
Right.
So, like, on digital page or original page 12, we get flashbacks to Thor and Orca, which I haven't read. We get Hawkeye and Manticore, and then we get the Project Pegasus story, which we covered. Yep, Deathlock. We covered the Grapplers, and then we covered the Nth Man. Like, personally, I love, and then the Serpent Squad. We've just come across the Serpent Squad, like. And then even this Iron Man story with Centurion, I just read that because I went back and read all the early 80s Iron Man. So I personally love this stuff. Julie, is this stuff confusing to you? Is it boring? Or does it make you want to go out and read those stories?
It is all of the above. It is confusing. It is boring. It makes me not want to read any of the stories that accompany it. It actually resulted in me skipping this entire section.
Yikes. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, I looked, I glossed over it because I liked the way that they narrated it, I guess, with his little, like, non-corporeal head.
Yeah.
But that was, like, the only thing that I kind of liked about it. I was just like, oh, okay, well, this is all stuff that I'm going to have to catch up on. And this is what I really honestly don't like about comics is they're, like, a lot of comics that a lot of Bronze Age stuff. Like, there's a lot of see issue or don't you remember this happened in? It's like, no, I don't remember. So feed it to me.
I personally, I'd rather see those notes at the end as end notes. Well, though. But, Josh, what's your take on it? Does it make you want to go out and read them?
So, I have read quite a few of these that they're talking about and referencing in this flashback. So, for me, I enjoyed it this time, but I don't think I would have if I hadn't. Well,
yeah, I definitely don't think that the way that the information was given was necessarily stellar, but I do think it's cool if you were a reader of Thor and Avengers and Iron Man and Spider-Man and Marvel 2-in-1, and then you came to this issue, once you realize that everything's connected together, that's a pretty cool thing to see, I think, to be like, oh my gosh, all these things are connected,
Yeah, I think that if it were an event issue, like something that you went into knowing this was going to be like this one connecting thing, it wouldn't be as bad.
Right.
Like if you're like, okay, if I can, let me compare this to the movies, for example, like in Endgame or Infinity War, you understand that there's a bunch of stuff leading up to this point. So if you go in blind, not knowing anything, you know that you're not going to get all of the pieces, right?
Sure.
But if you go in and watch Ant-Man and they stop the movie to explain what's happened in all the other movies, you're kind of like, is this information needed? Like,
sure, yeah.
It might be fun for the people who have been watching all of the movies leading up to this point to like see it and like, oh, I get that, like I understand that, like this is really cool, it's all connecting. But for the people who haven't, it's kind of just like something they have to push past to get to the rest of what's going on.
Right.
So I definitely see both sides. I enjoyed it because I have read a lot of these issues, but I don't think this is something I would want to see on a regular basis.
Okay, good point. Okay,
right.
So So basically, I definitely recommend this issue. It's another good chapter in the ongoing series by John Romita Jr., written by Roger Stern. Jolie, would you recommend this issue?
Yeah, I guess. If only to unconfuse yourself about the last issue, about issue 234. It's, I guess it's necessary, but like, you know, get right on 236 instead.
Okay, good point. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like just this issue alone, I would not recommend like by itself. But I bet with 234, 5, and 6, it will feel like more of the full story, and I would recommend that as a whole. If that makes sense. I haven't read 236 yet, so who knows? But
yeah.
I feel like that's where this is all going to end up leading up to.
Yeah. All right, we'll find out next week. So until then, let's move on to Marvel Team Up number 124. And Josh, do you want to take it away?
Sure. So again, we have another really kind of all over the place issue. We have Professor Power. He wants revenge on the X-Men and Xavier, so he starts picking on Beast, who is trying to reconnect with his parents. His mom is kind of distant and isn't accepting him being the Beast. Spider-Man ends up running into them after Power Man and Beast start fighting each other, and that's how he's part of the story. Really no other reason that I can remember. And by the end of the issue, Professor Power stops destroying him stops trying to kill Beast because his mom steps in the way, and he remembers his relationship with his son, and that's why he's doing this, right? So yeah, it sure was an issue.
Yeah, I have very mixed feelings about this, but first I want to know, Jolie, what did you think of it?
So I think I'm just like a huge supporter of like the more quote unquote human side of these people, like these superheroes stories. So to me, I liked this one in a really weird way. Like, I've never really been a big fan of the Beast, but I also don't really know a lot about him. I've never heard of Professor Power before, so kind of shoehorning him in there. I kind of wanted to know more about his medieval castle more than anything.
So do the rest of us.
Right? and just shoehorning it in there as like a secret lair is like, okay, but like, can we hang out here for a second? Like, I just want to stay here in these woods. Like, but no, we have to move on. I think if they would have omitted the Aunt May story, which, I mean, they couldn't have done because it's a Spider-Man. It's ultimately like, does a team up always have to include Spider-Man?
Yeah, there are some issues where it's like Human Torch and somebody or Hulk and somebody, but 99% of the time it's Spider-Man.
Okay, so yeah, so if it's meant to be a team up between Spider-Man and somebody else, then I guess you kind of have to put that in there because you have to somehow get Spider-Man into a car and into the action outside of the Beast's mom's hotel room. And it takes a really strange turn, but honestly, like, okay, and these are the things I liked this issue. I really did. They went to an Indian restaurant, which I can relate to. Like, and his mother hates him for, one, being a beast, which I can relate to. And then his father's like, you know, I'm not really into it either. You're not the CPA that she hoped you were going to be. Like, you were hoping he was going to be an accountant. Like, he can technically still be an accountant. Like, he's just blue and furry.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, he's still a professor at this point, right? Like, at this point, is he teaching at Xavier Academy?
No, because right now he's not actually in the X-Men. He's in the Defenders, I think.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last, I mean, so many items, so much relatability in this character that I was like, why haven't I read Beast more? Like, he swings out of every room. Like, he swings out of the restaurant on a chandelier, which I can relate to. Like, so much good stuff.
You can relate to swinging out of a restaurant on the chandelier?
Can't you?
Oh, man, I guess I just haven't been going to the right restaurants.
I mean, you just gotta look up.
Well, here's the thing is, I actually, the Professor Power stuff to me is completely forgettable. It's the subplot that makes this issue good, right? Like, all the stuff with Beast and his family and Aunt May and Peter. And, like, I do appreciate that part of it. But the thing is like, this particular way of having someone be prejudiced against the Beast because of his appearance, it's just, the problem is I've seen it done better by Louise Simonson and Grant Morrison, and so I thought it was really unsubtle the way it was done here. How his mother's like, "Don't touch me, you disgusting freak!" Like, that's a little bit unsubtle. And like, then, but then to have the father give the big speech, and then instead of Beast feeling like he should be crying at this point, he's like, "Well, I'm going to go talk to her." You know, he just leaps out of the room and I'm going to go run down the street and convince her, you know, that I'm actually not a monster. I don't know. I just thought that was really forced and unrealistic.
Yeah, his speech wasn't really, like, uplifting for him. He was pretty much just defending her, and he's like, "Wow, you sure are right. I'm going to go try and patch things up." It just, like... Right. It didn't... I like the idea that they're going for. Like, okay, so Marvel Team Up did this really well with... the Gargoyle, when Spider-Man teams up with the Gargoyle. It was so good. Jolie, if you kind of enjoyed this and you like this kind of like weird story where it's more of a character study, a few issues back, it's a Marvel team up with Spider-Man and Gargoyle, and it's so good. Gargoyle is a character I've only like seen in like the in like books. I haven't actually read any issues that he's been in, so I thought, I was like, oh great, another Marvel team up with a random character. It was so great. It was like really like a deep character study with him, and like there wasn't really much like big bad guy coming in starting a fight. It was really good, and it really dealt with like a lot of personal issues, which I felt like this was going for, but it just didn't work. Especially the Professor Power stuff. Like, okay, so Professor Power, again, he's another character that's a reoccurring Marvel team-up villain, and he's been awful up to this point. Like, all of his stories that he's been in have, like, really been, like, crummy. He's teamed up... He's been in issues with Wolverine and Xavier, and possibly another one. Possibly another character in Marvel Team-Up. With the Wolverine one, he just shows up. Like, the castle just shows up out of nowhere. They don't explain who Professor Power is or what this facility is in the middle of nowhere. Like, the amount of context they give the castle in this issue, they've given it in all the other ones where they introduced him. Like, it's just so random. Like, all of these guards are robots. I forgot about that. They don't even. I don't think they really talk about that in here. But like all of the Roman soldiers, they're robots. Like I don't. I don't get it. Yeah.
It's just so thrown together, like just a bunch of random science fiction cliches thrown together. That's how I take it. You know.
Yeah, it felt like they just needed to come up with a new idea for a villain. So they're like, all right, Professor Power. He lives in a castle and he's got some robot boys. I don't know.
Right. Now, what'd you guys think of the big climax where Beast is getting his ass kicked and then the mother's like, "This isn't right. This madman is going to kill my Henry no matter what he's become. What we've been through, he's still my son. Still my son!" And then she runs out the door. I mean, and then of course at the end we get the, the 80s sitcom happy ending where they're all a big, loving, happy family now. Jolie, what'd you think of that?
I mean, it's not super unrealistic. I mean, again, in items that Jolie can relate to, like every time I see a fight that has nothing to do with me outside of the bar, I go running.
Okay.
And somehow I can inject my personal thoughts and feelings to stop the fight. Like, this is exactly what she's doing, isn't it? Just interfering where she really shouldn't be interfering, and who can't relate to that on a daily basis?
Fair point. Okay. Josh, what do you think of the ending?
I think that it was a good ending for I feel like we didn't get enough of a resolution before this for her to run in and protect him. she just called the Beast like a disgusting, ugly creature, and then ran off. And then they didn't get it. They didn't have any time like together to talk, or for Beast to say anything to her to like make her change her mind. You know what I mean? Like there was no like time for that to kind of sink in that it's still her son. So the change seems like abrupt and kind of not earned.
Forced? Yeah, very. Yeah. I agree. So, yeah, again, kind of a typical... Like, I think I was giving a lot of goodwill to Marvel Team Up for a while, but the last few issues have been sort of dipping down quality a little bit. So I hesitantly recommend this. I don't know if I'd rush to read it again, but it was certainly an enjoyable enough issue. Jolie, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. Like, it's... mildly enjoyable, if not for the strangeness. The only thing to me that's going to be memorable about this is the strangeness that it is imparted on the tiny black heart in my chest. Like, I'm gonna remember this forever, and just like, but for no reason, you know.
Okay.
It's such a strange story. It's like remembering the story about Superman doing taxes.
Yes.
Like, that's the main plot of his heroism, is that he did someone's taxes. Like this, the strange parental bond that the Beast's mother and Professor Power share. Like, that's how I'm going to use this to like talk about parenting to parents. Like, you too can stop such and such from happening if only you could see on the same level of love. It's dumb, and I'm here for it.
So yeah, there's definitely something to this issue, because I mean, as we said, J.M. DeMatteis is clearly a good writer. It's just that he tends to kind of just throw things up the wall and see what sticks, I think.
Yeah.
So with that, let's move on to our final pick this week, which is Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, number 73. Jolie, do you want to tell us what this issue is about?
I could do that, except for the only notes I have for this one is what? Question mark, exclamation mark, question mark.
All right.
So, I mean, I could try. No, I can't. I'm looking at this now, and I'm like, you know what? I can't do it.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Okay.
Or Josh, did you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try. So I'll just say quickly that I love this splash page so much that I posted it on like a Facebook page, and I tweeted it. It starts out with this really cool silent scene of a guy walking down the street. He walks up the entrance to an apartment. He rings the doorbell. He goes in. He rings the doorbell. He bursts through the door and says, "Peter Parker, you are the Spectacular Spider-Man." I freaking love this. Okay, I laughed out loud when I read that. Incorporating the title of a comic into his speech is awesome. But then you got to go, well, wait a minute, why is he saying that? You know, and then of course you find out this is Deborah Whitman's doctor or psychologist or whatever. And basically he says that Deborah Whitman is going crazy. She's schizophrenic. She believes you're Spider-Man. So the only way to cure her is for you to pretend that you're Spider-Man, and then somehow we'll go from there.
This is the stupidest thing.
I know.
I hate this so much. I hate these awful subplots with poor Deborah Whitman. I'm so done with them. Like, just write this character out. Why are you torturing her?
I think that actually might be coming soon. I'm pretty sure next issue might be the resolution of the whole Deborah Whitman story.
Oh my goodness!
Well, I mean, if the last page is any indication, it will be. And I hope she dies. Honestly, when I was reading this and I got to the last page and realized, shoot, this is about Deborah Whitman. All I could hear was like Josh's anguish.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's pretty rough.
Terrible.
And the thing is, this doesn't come up again. This is not important to what's going on. Like, this has nothing to do with this issue. And then at the end, we get another little, like, a couple of panels where he calls the psychiatrist at the end. Like, it just doesn't. Maybe it would make sense if, like, the villain that he was fighting or the conflict throughout made him realize that he has to help, but like nothing happens for that like switch in his brain to be like, I'm not gonna like mess with Deb, that's not right, and then realizing at the end like, no, this might help her, like I'm her friend, why wouldn't I do like everything in my power to like save her and help her. There's nothing happens in this conflict with the owl and Dr. Octopus that like
that changes his mind.
Yeah, it's just random. It just happens.
Well, I guess he feels guilty because he's been ignoring her, and he decides, well, if this can help her, then I'm going to do it. But you're right; it has nothing to do with what just happened.
Right, and we don't see him realize that. He just realizes it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no like reason for him to have that change. After being a dick to him for the past few years, or a dick to Deborah. So,
good point.
I don't know.
Well, go ahead, Jolie.
I just don't see how this is like a proper solution to her problem of schizophrenia.
No.
So you're asking him to pretend to be Spider-Man, but he's really Spider-Man. So he's going to go out. Like, how is she going to even find that out? Like, are they going to film it for her to see? Like, I don't understand how that has anything to... It just makes no sense.
We'll have to see next issue, right?
Right.
And do you know what? Yeah.
And the thing is, too, like... It would make sense if like we were hinting at the fact that maybe there was something psychologically going on with Deborah the past few years, but but I think what is happening is she is so inconsistently written that they're like, we need to figure out this character, like what is going on, like she's so different from issue to issue. You know what? Let's just make the solution that she's schizophrenic, and like they almost like pushed like mental issue on her because they didn't know how to write her or what to do with her, and that's why it sucks so much.
I agree. Well, but for this actual issue though, let's talk about the main plot, which is getting back to the owl and the fact that the owl's trying to assert his place in the underworld. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we have, what's his name? Boomerang is on trial, and he's kind of like, I kind of never thought of him this way, but he's kind of like more of a bullseye character where anything in his hands becomes a deadly weapon. I thought that was really cool. What'd you think of that?
Yeah, it gave him a little bit more like power and weight, because I think before, well, he was in a couple of good issues. He didn't feel threatening ever.
Right.
Like, he didn't really seem like much of a dangerous person. But taking that costume away from him and taking the boomerangs away, you, like, have to, like, force him into a corner, and he's using whatever he can grab as a boomerang. So, like, the pen, and then he takes the judge's gavel, and he flings that around, and, like, anything in this guy's hand can be a deadly weapon because of how he was trained and, like, the powers he has. So I actually thought that, like, taking him out of that and humanizing him in this, like, courtroom was actually really great for the character, and I kind of want to see more of him now.
Right. Jolie, what did you think of that stuff?
I mean, if I was the defense attorney, I would have been like, objection, through half of the entire court proceedings. Because he's leading I'm sorry, I watch a lot of like court procedurals, and I'm like, he's speculating at one point, he's leading the witness and others, and it only makes Boomerang, it only inflames him, which is like not what you want for a witness on the stand.
Right.
So like, it should have never gotten to that point. Who is the defense attorney? I don't even know. But so it's unrealistic is I guess what I'm trying to say. And but I do enjoy that they sort of like, I don't know, I'm also not familiar with the boomerang, but because he becomes so inflamed and just like grabs a pen really quick and does these things, like that's all I needed to know about him. Was once he grabbed things and it became this master marksman throwing objects. Like, that's all I needed to know. They didn't have to cut away to a backstory. They didn't have to spend an issue telling me who he was. They just needed to do this, and it was so cool. That was, to me, that was like really cool. But I didn't know what that had to do with the owl. So while it was cool, it was confusing.
would it surprise you to find out that the writer Bill Mantlo went on to become a lawyer?
Well.
Yes, he actually was in law school around this time and went on to become a public defender by the late 80s.
Wow.
Pretty interesting, eh? Yeah. Isn't that funny?
That's crazy.
So maybe this was just when he was starting out and he was starting to really get into, like, you know, court cases and stuff.
That's really interesting.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. No, but I want to talk about the art this issue because I believe this is the first issue not drawn by Ed Hannigan and drawn by Al Milgrom. Now, Al Milgrom has a very poor reputation among Bronze Age readers. However, this issue is also inked by Jim Mooney, who's been inking various Spider-Man comics the whole time we've been doing Here Comes the Spider-Cast. Mm-hmm. And I think it must be because of the inking, but I actually found the art in this issue pretty freaking good. Josh, what did you think?
Yeah, I was just about to say the same thing. A lot of the stuff with the owl in the museum really stood out to me. That was really great. Like, he was like cast in shadows and he's hanging on the wall with all these like taxidermy birds hung all around him and these people gathered. It's really great. Yeah, there's some really good stuff in here.
I agree. Jolie, what do you think of the art?
If we want to go right from digital page one, just the level of imagination. Like, I wouldn't know Al Milgrom from what you're telling me about him, other than the fact that to me, he seems like more of an artist who's willing to take chances. I guess it's a good thing that Jim Mooney is a good inker. I've never seen just his plain pencils before, Al Milgrom, but like, just going from the beginning, how he does the title Spider-Man. It's the tops of the buildings.
It's great.
That is amazing. I love it. And then, to me, honestly, storytelling is really good too. And there's a lot of like, he uses a lot of long panels, which as an artist are really hard to render in because you have to, you usually reserve those for kind of like wide shots, really like super wide shots. And he does a couple close-ups, which are really impressive in them. To sort of get the story going, and he uses the size of panels to pace the story really well. And his sort of, I would say, I also really like the expressive nature of we're going to keep going back to this court scene, but like, there's so many people in the court scene, but every face is interesting. Even the guards who surround Boomerang in the background on like digital page 7.
Yes.
Like, and it's all just rendered. If there were no colors, it's all just rendered in blacks, or like strokes or impressions of black. So maybe we can thank the inker for that one. But like, expressions are all different. There's no double uses. There's no laziness in the art for this issue. There's a lot of like motion. Yeah. From panel to panel.
Especially the scene where Boomerang throws his
the gavel. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great scene that's broken up into 4 panels, right? Josh, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, even the buildup of the like, I know we're really focusing on this court scene, but I really loved it. Even the storytelling through the fact that the Boomerang has the pen in his hand the entire time, and as he's being questioned, he's clicking the pen. Right, so we're seeing him click this pen the entire, like, in every single panel, he's clicking it, and like, the more he's being questioned, the angrier he's getting, and the closer and closer this pen is like getting to his face, until finally he like explodes and throws this pen. Like, he's like setting it up through the panels and what's happening in. Like, you don't see Peter Parker watching this going, what's he doing with that pen? It's getting closer and closer to his face. It's like he's, gonna explode. They tell it through the panels, which is great. I love it.
You're right. Yeah, sorry, I was mixing up. So first he throws the pen, then he throws the gavel. So, yeah, but yeah, they're both really well done, and even like Spider-Man grabbing Boomerang and swinging away with him is really well done. Again, it's like Jim Mooney clearly is like making Al Milgrom's inks a lot slicker, or pencils a lot slicker than they probably originally were. Right. But then later on, I also love all the stuff with the owl in the whatever it is, the museum or whatever. It's just, there's a lot of nice use of shadow, like when Spider-Man is crawling around and he's on top of that, what is that? It's like the big, the giant stellar projector, and then like it starts to get all wonky where the blacks of his costume are mixed in with like this, like the space, you know, like the stars
that's
and everything.
Great.
Really cool stuff there, yeah. It just it just makes for some nice looking pages. I'm just really surprised. There's another great shot where he crawls inside the ribs of the Brontosaurus, and again Al Milgrom splits up the image into 3 panels, right? It's again probably a trick I'm assuming he learned from Jim Starlin, but it's a really cool technique, and it really makes the art in this stick out. And so yeah, like I don't think Al Milgrom's a great artist, but I think at this point he was maybe again being influenced by the right people, like by Frank Miller and Jim Starlin. So he's really turning out some good stuff. So overall, I really liked it.
Yeah, even when like the figures aren't as strong, I think the storytelling has really improved through the art. Like even if the anatomy isn't always right, like you still understand everything that's going on. So I
absolutely
definitely enjoyed the art this issue.
Yep, so I'm going to say, once again, I recommend this issue of Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man. What about you, Jolie?
If you give a good goddamn about Deborah Whitman. Yeah. Maybe don't read this one. Or, I mean, read the first 2 pages and the last page, but that's it. I guess I can recommend it. If it's part of an ongoing saga, a saga I don't know what of, but I will recommend it for the art alone, as a good study of what action looks like on the body and throughout visual, like the visual storytelling medium. It's just a really good example, I think, of all of that.
Right.
Like the compositions are wild and fancy, and I can recommend it for the art alone.
Excellent. All right. Well, and Josh, what do you think? Would you recommend this?
Yeah, I definitely would, with the caveat of like having the Deborah Whitman stuff at the beginning and end. Like I really don't like that side story and everything that's going on with her, but the
right.
like actual meat of this story is pretty fun. I really like how Doc Ock at first comes in to kind of like put the owl on blast and be like, you know what, this isn't working. I've pretty much tricked you into doing this, and now that I don't need you anymore, we're done. Spider-Man, swoops in and he's like, you know what, let's put our differences aside for a second. He throws in a couple punches. He realizes that Owl and Spider-Man are going one-on-one. He's like, you know what, I'm washing my hands of this and let my 2 enemies take care of each other. And he like splits. It's great. So there's some really fun stuff in here. Again, with Spider-Man going into the Hayden Planetarium is really cool. I always love when they're in real places.
Yes, me too.
So
I love it.
Seeing that little note. I don't even think any of the characters say it, but just in the background you see the sign on the door saying Hayden Planetarium. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
I agree. So overall, a pretty strong week for Spidey, right, guys? I think. Well, maybe more so for us than for Jolie, but considering next week is the resolution of the Deborah Whitman saga, I think you're gonna have to come back again, Jolie. What do you think?
I'm going to, because sorry, low key, I already started reading the next issue because I give a crap about Deborah.
Really?
Of course, right. Good.
I want to know, honestly.
Yeah.
I want to know more about her, because I feel like I care about her in a way that Peter Parker clearly doesn't. So.
Well, sometimes he does.
Well,
yeah, depending who's writing him.
Yeah.
So there you go, folks. You're going to have to tune in next week to find out what happens to Deborah Whitman and what our review is of that issue. Yeah. So, Josh, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah. If you guys want to check us out over at Spotify, Apple Podcast, or you can find us on Facebook at The Comic Book Syndicate. If you want to tweet at us, you can tweet us at Comic Syndicate. We want to keep that conversation going. We want to know what you guys think about the podcast and the issues that we're talking about. So please contact us there.
There you go, and we'd like to thank G.I. Jolie once again for joining us, and she will be back next week. So there you go. Until next Monday, this has been Here Comes the Spider Cast.